no, I don't survive, I win. Right?
Yeah.
No. Surviving is for like surviving for skill. Yeah, but it was brutal. Holy shit! When your competitor was like doing 2,000% AQI, right? Jesus fucking Christ, that was fucking. I mean, I never said this before and stuff because most interviews I've been on have been just talking about other stuff in general, right?
Yeah.
But since I'm here, fuck it, right? I'll just say it's this stuff, right? Yeah. So if you combine all three things, the survival reason, like the survival reason, the strategy reason, the team reason, it became pretty fucking clear why Jupiter. Yeah.
Meow, super excited to have you on the podcast. We were talking a little bit before recording, and it's just been amazing to me, your guys' journey. I think in my past life at Tesla, shipping was one of the key priorities of our successful team, and I think that is embodied 100% in Jupiter. And so I've been continuously impressed by how quickly you guys ship and just how great the product has actually become. So congratulations just to start it off.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
It's been super impressive, but thank you for coming on the podcast.
One thing to also say as well, since we're doing that, is that I think you guys have been one of the most like consistent supporters, right, of Solana. Right. I mean, honestly, I think it was very easy to support Solana 3 years ago, right?
It was we kind of joke internally at Frictionless. We were a ugly duckling swimming upstream, kind of trouting Solana in the high throughput narrative. But recently, we've become a beautiful white swan that is swimming downstream.
And you know what? You deserve it, right? Because I mean, after the duckling have swam upstream for so long, right? The muscles get toned, you look really hot now and everything, right? No, but seriously, I mean, like, it was very easy to be hyping Solana, right, early on, right? But I think those that stayed on and proved their matter, right, over the last like year, especially, I think I think I have a very, very deep appreciation. And one of the big reasons why I'm really happy, I'll be honest with you, right? I'm actually much happier now, right? Even this last year, I was actually really happy. I think mainly because I think the quality. So even though activity, price, everything just went out gutter, right? But the quality of people I was working with just skyrocketed. I wasn't kidding. Right, so it's like because I think before that it was just so clear that there's so many like people are not very serious. But then like over the last year, I mean, again, like it wasn't easy, right? But so happy,
100%. I mean, to me, I joined the crypto market in 2017 in that bull market, and I mean, the only reason that I kind of in the spot today is because I stuck around in 2018 and 2019, and at that time it was kind of funny because all the Bitcoin people were dancing on Ethereum's grave, saying like it was only used for ICOs and scam, and that it was never coming back. And I feel like Solana had a similar moment, like post FTX, where everybody's like, even VCs were like, "Don't use Solana. We're not going to invest in you. It's going to zero." But the builders, the VCs that stayed around, like they really rallied together, and I think that's kind of that core community and backbone that's shaping the community today.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting to say that, right? Because like I mean, easily, many of the VCs that were like openly like praising Solana like at the peak moment messaged us and they were like, guys, are you still going on Solana? Right? Have you thought going to Ethereum or Sui or Aptos? I heard they're really cool. Have you heard of Move? Right? I'm not kidding. Seriously, it was actually really astonishing to see that change, right? Right? Yeah. And then they go on and recently they're like, hey, hello, how's it going? So it's like, so it's like, you must be very familiar with the dynamic, right? So I think, but again, to your point, I think, I think one thing that people don't understand in this crypto space is that because things just seem to just suddenly work, right? Because in crypto, when things work, things pop, right? Yeah. Right? So I think, but people don't actually know that, like, everyone I know that does well in bull markets, they've been working their ass off in like at least two or three bear markets before, right? There's a certain like training you get from like understanding, things from those moments that you don't get in bull markets, right? Yeah, to a point earlier.
Yeah, 100%. I think the people that stick around, like you have to kind of eat shit for a while. Like you have to go through the hard times. And I admire the team that you have built and would love to maybe start the podcast there. It's just like, how did you start this like crypto journey? How did ultimately Jupiter come about to be?
Oh wow, crypto journey. I mean, I'll just skip forward a few years, right, and just talk about. So I think I really started becoming. I would say that I was. So I was previously an advisor to Instadap. They're number 10 TVL or something, right? And then there's Kyber, right? And then there's Blockfolio, right? You might have heard of these three projects.
Yep.
I also started WBTC, right? The Wrap token, Wrap Bitcoin. And then also founding contributor to a project called Handshake as well. So I think I've been before getting involved in Solana, I have been working on several DeFi and non-DeFi. So I would say that even before getting started on Solana, I think my experience was pretty like I experienced between like a new blockchain, Handshake, a consumer app portfolio, and also a bunch of DeFi protocols. So I'm actually pretty familiar with stuff, and all those things certainly informed a lot of decisions, right? As I started this project as well. Yeah.
So you originally kind of starting out advisor with different projects, hands in a bunch of different ecosystems, built up that kind of base knowledge. But how did that pivot to like being like, I want to become a builder?
No, I mean, I was actually always like extremely intense. I was actually always extremely involved, right? I was. I don't like giving. I don't like titles. I mean, even currently, I don't have a title. You know what I'm saying, right? So so it's more like I call myself a cat. Right?
Chief of memes.
Yeah, no, whatever. I think that's good. But I know I've actually always been extremely hands-on. Working through every single communication, working through every single ecosystem play. Working forming for example WBTC, right? WBTC, everyone knows WBTC now, right? But the way it got started was extremely important. To it becoming like the foundation, right? To becoming the most trusted wrap token today. Right, right, and the foundation was actually built out right in the very early days of WTC, right? There was actually this really big alliance building, right? Got all the major dexers like Compound and everyone, and the right partner Bitgo to come in and everything. So yeah, so I think doing I started the whole thing, right? Together with Loy and a couple others. So yeah, I think so I've always been really, really hands-on, right? So it wasn't more like building my own thing, but more like just actually the bigger decision, because I was always building stuff. The bigger decision was to come to Solana, right? So I would say that was like probably the bigger decision. Yeah.
And what spurred that decision? Was it just kind of seeing Ethereum, like you wanted to build a certain type of application that was not possible in Ethereum, or was it just like, hey, like I want to play around in the sandbox that is Solana and see what I can do?
I mean, it was probably a range of different factors. I would say. Yeah. I would say at that point, I think I was getting a little bit tired of the constraints of EVM, right? Where we just started becoming less about what we can do in blockchain, but more like how we can save gas. Right? I mean, yeah. We joke about it, right? But it's actually very true, because like if you go to and also I think I was also kind of like becoming a little bit not unsure about the L2 vision, right? I mean, I was like, okay, L2s are going to be great for creating new Cosmos, right? It's gonna be super easy to create new shit. I mean, I would say that what I'm saying now is some hindsight, but I had that kind of feeling back then. That was like really becoming a certain thing I didn't really see was going to be really great. So I think and thirdly is that I was actually fairly intrigued by I also wanted to go to a new community. I think that was actually a pretty big deal as well. As you know, communities get somewhat fossilized. Right. I wouldn't say fossilized because the Ethereum community is still very dynamic, right? But certainly, I think the shape of the community is formed. Whether it's Bitcoin and everything, right? You know what I mean. So I think and in crypto, the shape. I mean, it's really hard to understand if you're not in it. But when you're in it, you understand what I mean. There's a certain shape of the ecosystem, shape of the community that it's like you either like it or don't like it, right? Things like that. I think so. I think for me, I kind of felt like the shape of the community wasn't really for me. right? So I think I wanted a fresh start as well, for sure. I think so in summary, it was partly the desire to explore a new technology stack. Another thing is I didn't really like where the direction is going around optimizing gas and our tools. And lastly, is I guess I wanted to kind of be part of a fresh ecosystem. Yeah, so I think those were the three. So those are three like Ethereum specific reasons, right?
Yeah.
And then you had the Solana specific reasons as well, right? So why Solana, right? Why not Cosmos or Polkadot or anything, right? Right. So I think and over there similarly there are a few reasons as well, right? I think first of all, I think I'm going to say the name that shall not be mentioned, right? I mean, I think first of all, I think I can talk more, I can talk as much as I want about like technology and everything, right? But market is really important, right? So I think so obviously I think Sam and FTX drove a lot of the initial kind of like market and market like viability, right? Particularly around Serum. Serum was great. Serum was really great. Serum, I mean, even though when I first tried Serum, I'm like this is like obviously not quite there, right? They just completely unusable in so many ways, right? But it was there. So in many ways, the UI wasn't there, right? But the fundamentals were there. Like, wow, you can actually build something like this, right? Because you can actually build the dream application that everyone will be talking about forever on Ethereum, but you can actually do it here.
Solana kind of caught lightning in a bottle with, I mean, in 2020 and 2021, like right after it launched, Ethereum almost became pretty much unusable because of the high gas fees. You're trying, as you're pointed out, like you're trying on the builder side to optimize for gas costs because they're so expensive. And then you have kind of this FTX SAM figure that comes in like putting their entire weight behind the Solana ecosystem that help bring in or at least have new builders come and explore that ecosystem, and then new possibilities that Solana brought about. It was a kind of magical moment that I don't know, it's going to be very hard to replicate again for these other new ecosystems.
Dude, but you know what? That's funny. I mean, at the risk of sidetracking a bit, right? I feel like magic in the moment happens like, I mean, the Bitcoin was lightning in the bottle, right? Ethereum was lightning in the bottle, right?
Yep.
And then and Solana is lightning in the bottle, right? So I think the really great thing about crypto right now is that like there's so many concurrent experiments happening, right?
Yep.
And then at the macro like capital and technical and like requirement landscape, then lots of things happening as well, right? So I think it's like, you don't really catch lightning in a bottle, but if there are enough bottles and enough lightning, sometimes the lightning happens. I'm thinking, right? And then I have no doubt that as much as I love whatever is happening here, I have no doubt that there's going to be many more innovations to come. Yeah,
100%.
So anyway, back to the point, right? Is that I think so I think number one, I think there was a certain proof of concept that this would be a feasible ecosystem, right? And then we started diving in a bit deeper as well, and we were actually impressed because it was like because I'm not sure you remember, but most other chains like Avex or like Cosmos, or not Cosmos, like like most of them went on EVM direction, right? Right? I think and or the multiple blockchain direction, right?
Yeah.
So like Solana was the only one that went like I mean, I'm sure there are others, but Solana was definitely the one that went like, okay, we're going to have our own stack, right? Own stack, own use cases, and the whole account model of building stuff was completely different, right? It was actually really horrendous to look at because into when you first started building, it was like, wow, you have to match the bytes and everything. It's like just crazy. But I think, but it impressed us, right? Because cool, all right, this is really a new. We could see how this fundamentally new way of building could lead to kind of fundamentally new applications, right? So that was interesting for us, right? And then lastly, I think we were able to get a bunch of our friends who were also interested in like exploring like this new ecosystem, right? To do it as well. Yeah. So we started exploring this direction. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. So ultimately, you decided to venture out of the EVM ecosystem for a variety of reasons. And what was the first project that you kind of ultimately got your feet wet from like the hands-on building and building the team aspect?
So in Solana.
Yes.
Solana. Yeah. Cool, awesome. So I think again something real quick is that I think I think before Ethereum I was already working on a bunch of different things, right? So I think I do tend to actually explore quite a bit. Anyway, so I think it was a project called Mercurial. So Mercurial, like many other projects, we were funded FTX in the era, and then we did an FTX IEO. Yeah. So I would say that was actually, and then we were one of the first like AMMs in the space. Yeah, so I think that was actually kind of like how we and that's actually where the team formed and stuff. Yeah, so that was actually the first thing that we did in Solana. Yeah.
In the AMM space, that was also very competitive in the early days. Can you talk about that?
Sure. It was actually extremely interesting. How do I say this? I mean, it was the days where nothing mattered except tokens and LM and how much TVL you had, how much batch you could gather, right, and everything and stuff, right. So that was that was that. And obviously, you had Radium. Like Radium was there, Orca was there, Sable was there, Atrix was there, and there are many others actually, many others, right? And then but much respect to, like I've really deep respect for like Radium, Orca, because I think they were the two projects that are like still doing really well now. You know what I'm saying, no? Right? Yeah, and So I think obviously I think for Mercurial our initial project was stablecoins. Right, so obviously our main and I'm not sure if you remember, but our main I would say competitor, but the other project that was doing stablecoins was Saber, right? And then they were able to generate massive amounts of like liquidity mining, right? And also through a variety of mechanisms, right? But honestly, I think I don't wanna. I think I know a lot of things happened since then, but I actually have massive amounts of respect, for what he was able to do, like the team was able to do, even though things didn't work out so well at the moment, in a bit. But anyway, but with regards to us, I think we actually got caught. We were caught up in an LM game, liquidity mining game.
Right? I mean, that was the name of the game at the time. I mean, Compound kicked it off. Everybody was doing it.
Yeah, but I think it was brutal. Holy shit! When your competitor was like doing 2,000% APY, right? I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, that was fucking brutal. I mean, I never said this before and stuff because most interviews I've been on have been just talking about other stuff in general, right? But since I'm here, fuck it, right? I'll just say this stuff, right? I mean, that was brutal, man. I mean, when your main competitor was like when someone was doing like 2,000, like 20,000% APY, holy shit! Like, dude, it was crazy because you had to kind of like keep up a certain level, keep up a certain like percent APY to kind of like keep up, right? Otherwise, you die, right? But on the other hand, the more LM you give, right, then the more your token dies, right? And the more token dies, then we just got caught in this. Like, obviously, the market back then was like dying unless you were. So it was getting less hot already, right? It wasn't like a few months ago I just popping. Right, right. So I think, and also the token just got off to a bad start because the token launched when the Mer token launched when the China launch of FTX, when the China news landed, right? They started banning crypto, right? So it was like, so in some sense, instead of catching the market, we caught the knife, right? So we caught a knife is when you wait, right? Actually that okay, of course, taught me a big lesson, right? Right? But yeah, anyway, I think for that project, it was for Mercurial. I think it started off in a sense that number one, I think when the token launched, we caught a knife, right? Or the market dumped, and then later on, as we got started, there was one big problem, right? It was that like even though there were a lot of people who knew about Mercurial, but they were not actually on-chain users. They were FTX. Because when you do an FTX IEO, your initial community is not going to be your users, right?
That's true. You tap into an entire new community of traders.
Yeah, but then they're not users. They don't actually care. They don't actually care anything about you. They don't care about you. They don't use your product. They don't know who you are. They don't even use. I'm telling you, very few users in FTX actually use Solana, right? As in anything, right? In things like that, right? Anyway, so and most of their assets are on chain, right? So they don't really care, right? So this is so the first problem was that instead of catching the market caught knife, right? The second thing is that this breakdown between you have two set of users, right? Traders and users, right? Right? So you can do a lot of stuff for the users, right? But traders don't care, right? They care about the price, right? So then there's this big disconnect, right? And the third thing, and the thing is that the name of the game back then was LM, right? And then that game was fucking brutal, right? So I think all three all three things created a all three things created a extremely and because back then there was no Jupiter, right? So users would go to wherever the most liquidity was, right?
Yeah.
So they were just so we were like no one was using Mercurial even for trading, right? So there was no volume, right?
Interesting.
So it was like I would say it was like a bang 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 kind of thing, right? And then it was brutal. Yeah, the time was brutal. Yeah.
So
that was happened. Yeah.
Ultimately, I mean, a lot of learning lessons from Mercurial. It's still going on. Still team working on it, driving that product forward. But you also decided to start a new project with Jupiter. Can you talk about like the idea behind Jupiter and deciding to start that?
Sure. So I think two things, right? I think first of all, I think for anyway, just want to share something here real quick. Is that actually at some point, I think some point last year, actually, so we actually never stopped working on Mercurial, right? We actually really even though Jupiter was doing really Jupiter started doing really really well, right? But we actually never stopped working on Mercurial, right? So actually we continue working on Mercurial. We actually developed a lot of like really innovative systems for it, right? And then earlier this year we transited the platform and both the platform and the token to a completely new project, right? Called Mitara, right? So I think and we have been making a lot of like really really good progress on Mitara, and we have a really big launch, right? We're going to launch both something we call a dynamic liquidity market maker, right? That combines like the best of CRM and dynamic fees, and also a new DAO, and also a new a really powerful stimulus package, we call it, right? So all that is going to come out live like at the time it's recording, right? So we have actually been working really really hard, right? On the original thing as well, right? Never give up.
That makes sense. It is hard. I mean, all startups are kind of like your children. You can't really kill them, and you want to make sure that you do everything in your power to survive, and not only survive but thrive and do really well.
To win.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
no. I don't survive. I win. Right?
Yeah.
No. Surviving is for surviving for skills. Right?
And I think that to that point, I mean, you've done a fabulous job. I mean, especially on kind of the Jupiter side, being able to iterate. And I think that is really like the team's superpower, whether it's been Mercurial initially or even with Jupiter.
Yeah. I think sorry. Go on. Sorry.
I guess just to pivot a little bit from like the backstory and like how you got into the ecosystem, Jupiter has been killing it. I think whenever I talk now with people that are just coming into the Solana ecosystem, they're like, "Oh, have you used Jupiter? It's an amazing product, and and it's kind of the go-to app." So, can you talk about just starting Jupiter, the thought process there, and ultimately kind of bringing us to modern day?
Cool, awesome. Sorry if I was a bit passionate earlier. Right?
No, it's all good. I love the passion.
Not enough people know that part of the work we are doing, and I think it's very important to understand that as well.
100%.
Cool. All right. But I think remember how I said earlier about how like you weren't getting volume, right? You were getting volume,
yeah,
right? Like because everyone was using that, right? And then but so even though Mercurial didn't do very well, but we were actually building up a lot of like very good expertise, around like how things work, in how things work in Solana, right? So I think okay, so let me share the origination story of Jupiter in three points. Okay, the first point was that like, okay, we needed a product that could give Mercurial volume. That was very important, right? Because if basically if you didn't have if you're not one of the top AMMs and you don't actually have users using you're dead. Full stop. Dead in the water. Done. Right. So we needed something that could actually bring volume to Mercurial. Right. That's actually one big and also there was starting to have more and more tokens as well in space, or including all the wrap tokens. right? There was something coming, and back then there wasn't back then it was a very messy thing because it was still wormhole, wrap tokens over and everything. It was super messy, and there was so I think we wanted to also, and obviously it's all a need, right, for it, right, as well. Okay, so that's the first reason. We wanted something that could actually kind of make some of the tokens that we wanted to make Mercurial get volume. We wanted to kind of give some of the tokens that Pi, Pi coins, more make them more useful, right? So that was actually in Mercurial more useful. So that was the first reason, right? The second reason is strategic. It's strategic, right? If you look at the landscape, because remember I came from Ethereum, right? So I understood Ethereum. So I understood DeFi game really, really well, right? You kind of understood three things that users care about. Three things. At the end of the day, care about three things, right? Number one, they care about price. They care about having people being able to get the token they want, right? And third thing is that they care about how easy it is to use.
Yeah.
Three things done. Not many things else matter in DeFi, right? Let me say again: price, token selection, and usability, right? Those three things done, right? So I think that was that. So I think so I understood that game. And then, and the reason why aggregators don't work well on Ethereum is gas, right? It's gas cost, right? It's because and so it's unless you're trading 100,000 or something, right? Then you always there's no point. Then the gas become too high, right, for you to do as aggregator, right? And secondly also because Uniswap is so dominant over there, so we tend to have a lot of critical mass over there, whereas in Solana it's multiple spread out. Right, so I think I just understood what users in DeFi all want, right, and combine that with certain key differences I know they are different, right? Right. So I think so that gave me quite a lot of confidence in starting Jupiter, right? And then so the second reason, and the third reason is internal, right? And this kind of goes to your very, very early statement about team, right? Tesla and the team and stuff, right? It's that I think I knew that we have a good team. I knew that I worked with enough. People and enough enough in different contexts, right? Such I have a very very good sense of what a good team is and what not a good team is, right? But for example, if you put a swimming but for example, if you put a team of say bodybuilders, right? And you ask them to go marathon running, they'll suck, right? Right? They're all these muscle guys, and they go to run a marathon, they'll suck, right? So I felt a bit that way. Oh wow, I have a team of really fucking great powerlifters here, man, but they're fucking running marathons. I'm saying, right? So I was like, okay, this doesn't really work. I'm saying, so I was like, okay, cool, all right, great. So what kind of product will suit my team, right? Okay, number one, a team that number one, it will be a product that have a high touch. Right, where usability really matters, right? Because if you're LPing, then usability matters a bit less because you don't touch that product that often. You know what I'm saying? Right? And also because but then if you're doing a very high touch thing like swap, you can do it very often, right? Like touch, like tracking the price and everything, you do it very often, right? So I think we had a team that was extremely focused on UX, and we spent a lot of time making the Mercurial. I mean, the Mercurial is great. I know who used the Mercurial UX will say it was great, right? But no one cared, right? Because it just wasn't a product where UX mattered that much. Right?
Yeah.
Actually, since no one came to Mercurial to swap, right? Yeah. And so that's one thing, right? I think another thing is that I also realized that we were starting to gain a extremely good sense of the in and outs, right? For example, even at Mercurial, we were the first to solve some really big problems, right? Around compute units and around how do we take the incredibly complicated how do you optimize the hell of the Solana constraints, right? So we already and then also we started digging a lot into things like Serum, right? And we realized that, wow, no one else understands Serum except us and the Serum guys, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. But no one else really understood Serum, right? So I was like, okay, so I was like, okay, wow, okay, great. So anyway, in summary, first of all, I think, so if you combine the practicalities of the fact that Mercurial had no volume, and we needed something to get volume from Mercurial, full stop, done, over, right? And not just that, it was impossible. We did actually ask around, no one was going to integrate. There was no aggregator that was anywhere near ready, right? Because it's just so difficult, right? And secondly is that no one, and even if they are ready, they're not integrating. You ask, they're going to integrate saver, right? It's like, oh fuck, we are fucked, right? There's no way. We need to get volume. That's first thing. So that's the first one. There's a very clear reason, survival reason. They want to build something, right? That's the second reason is strategic reason, based on both the user need and also the environmental context, right, of gas costs and everything, right. And thirdly, and thirdly is the team capability, right? I kind of saw that this is probably the best thing to do based on what you know. Yeah. So if you combine all three things, the survival reason, like the survival reason, the strategic reason, the team reason, it became pretty fucking clear why it should be done.
It is pretty remarkable. I think it's kind of going back to the point that we were talking about earlier on the building side, where you kind of just have to eat shit for a little bit of time to realize, like, hey, how can I continue to make my product better? What do I need to iterate on? What lessons have I built over time? And for you, I mean, especially coming from the Ethereum ecosystem, realizing, hey, gas is way too expensive over here. You can't do the aggregator model just because gas gets crazy. But that is possible on Solana. And
it's crazy because I know for a fact that like 1inch and Paraswap and KyberSwap, they spend enormous amount of time, right, worrying about gas. You know what I'm saying? Right? I mean, we all work different things, obviously, but then I think it's like, I think we are very focused on like usability, for example. Yeah.
100%. And I think now, like, that usability aspect is really what has brought Jupiter to the front and center, I would say, of the Solana ecosystem. As you mentioned, people love trading. People love kind of their tokens. And by being able to aggregate kind of the best liquidity pools in that simple user experience, I mean, Jupiter, at least time and time again, when I talk with new individuals trying to explore the Solana ecosystem, they come to Jupiter.
So actually, I can talk a bit more. I can talk a bit more about that.
Go for it.
Cool, awesome. The important thing to understand is that usability in DeFi is not about UX, right? For example, say I build a alarm. Say for example, if I'm building a alarm clock application, right? It's a very singular, isolated me and the device interaction model, right? So usability can be defined as like, okay, what the button say, right? The one thing I want to share here is that, like, I mean, this is really fun because I haven't talked about these things ever, right? But,
that's why I like the long form podcasts.
Okay, this is fun. All right, cool. Okay, but usability in Twitter is very different. It's extremely different from it's the polar opposite of like this model I was describing earlier, right? Because like things fail, like endless things fail. Like for example, like you have very different kind of liquidity models, right? You have Serum as liquidity model, you have like the Ghost AMMs, you have Sanctum, you have the regular AMMs, the CRMMs and everything, right? So I think and they fail very often. And things break. The liquidity pools are sometimes too small, right? But users want to trade it, right? And this endless number of things, like slippage, for example, if your slippage is too low, things always fail. If your slippage is too high, you get wrecked, right? Right? Like for example, there was this case on Ethereum previously that one guy lost $2 million doing a trade, because his slippage wasn't set properly, right? So the MEV just took everything. So I think there are a lot of things that go into so there are a lot of things that obsess over, right? And also, for example, like how fast do the cash run? Because Solana runs really fucking fast, right? So it's the blockchain is 400 seconds, right? So think about it. In Ethereum, blockchain is 14 seconds, right? So after blockchain, you have entire 14 seconds to generate the code. And it was fine, right? But then on Solana, you don't have the luxury, right? Boom, over, right? So you have to keep your backend. Your backend has to run like all the faster servers, and and your routing has to be super fucking fast. And there's a lot of things that go into that process. And I'm saying, right? So so I just want to share that, like when we talk about usability, we don't just mean I think a lot of people just talk about the UI, right? But I think it's an entire stack, right? And I'm saying of a really really deep understanding of how the entire stack works. right? That I think is good for us. I think, yeah, and we are relentless about that.
And
yeah. So
do you think ultimately that comes back to kind of that relentless shipping, just being able to iterate and find out what works, what doesn't work? A lot of that early experimentations and learnings got to be applied to Jupiter, and seeing like how to actually make the best product. Because going back like to earlier, like these things don't happen overnight. Like Jupiter was not an overnight success. It has slowly, continually grinded, and now I think, to your point earlier, like things seem to go up like in crypto like relatively quickly, but that was never the case. Like the team grinds on the back end and consistently
never.
shifts quite a bit.
Actually, it's a really really good point, because actually if you look at the Jupiter usage, right, it never popped. It never popped. There was never that popped. The only thing that popped recently was like after Breakpoint, people started like caring about Jupiter and Solana more. That's it pops. Right?
Yeah.
But in general, and Jupiter happens to receive a lot of attention, right? Right. But everything has popped too, right? But it has been very consistent. Like we just consistently kind of like just became better along a range of metrics, and adding. I would say that we have been pretty good at adding the right kind of features. I think like DCA, we added that a few months ago, right? We're actually very proud of the feature, because it's a feature that like a lot of people want. It's actually super useful, but it actually hasn't been done well anywhere before, right? For I don't know of our reason, but but we were the first to really nail the experience, I think. So I think people really love that. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And also, I think we also launched a bridge comparator, allowing you to compare different rates to come in to Solana, right? So you can compare like between different bridges, and then we also started on that like a few months ago, and now it's useful, right? Because we started a few months ago,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So I think so I think a lot of things have just been a matter of like I guess both. I mean, you have the fundamentals, right? The fundamentals are like your basics. You can't fuck those up. Okay, this is what I tell people, right? So internally, this is called Juke Promise, right? Called best price, best token, best rewards, right? I always say this, right? It's like you can fuck up many things, right? You can launch a product no one cares. You can maybe you can like do something stupid, whatever. But then if you always have that promise, right, then you always have a role in the ecosystem. Right? So I think so to answer, to kind of share a bit more on that, it is a combination of having a very strong core, right? A core that of the Juke Promise, right? But also kind of like iterating and trying new features, right? So I think what happens a lot very often in crypto, I notice, is that people try things because someone else do it, or because some user say or whatever, but then they lose the core, right?
Yeah.
And they just become then they don't know what they stand for anymore, right?
And that's a great point. I've actually seen a lot of teams this happen to as well. They forget their core product that kind of got them from 0 to 1, and get excited, as many of us do within the blockchain industry, about the shiny new thing. There's a bunch of different features that they want to add, or new ecosystems that they want to start playing in, and forget their core product, and ultimately start to lose market share. But that has definitely not been the case in the Jupiter standpoint.
So actually, it's a really really interesting point that you are bringing up about the whole ecosystem thing, because there are two reasons, right? The first thing is like the product core, right? And then, but in crypto, it's never a product, right? Again, going back to the alarm clock, right? If you are building an alarm clock, then yeah, it's about the alarm clock, right? Yep. But then crypto is not. Crypto is this incredibly complicated it's complicated, like of like community ecosystem, finance, and product, right? All three matter. I don't care whether you're meme coin or your Jupiter or your blockchain, right? Product matter, right? If you're meme coin, your product is the vibes. And to be clear, I love meme coins. Okay, I fucking love meme coins. Okay, to anyone who don't like meme coins, I say, guys, chill the fuck out, have some fun. Right? I mean, I bring my product and everything, but I love meme coins, right? I love bonk.
Gotta enjoy the vibes.
Yeah, but that's it. But whatever it is, right? It's like you have the product, you have the product, you have the community, and then you have the financial part of it, right? Yeah. It's like really dynamic things or three things, right? And so I think in all these three things, right, whether it's in terms of product or whether it's in terms of community or whether it's in terms of the financial side of things, right, you want to have a core, right? A core is really, really important, right? So the danger, right? So people so one and you see that happening very often, right? In crypto, is that they go like, okay, especially in EVM, right? Go, okay, I have I have an EVM code base, right? Why don't I just deploy it somewhere else? Right? And then they do that, right? But then EVM, but then the community doesn't move along with you, right?
Yeah.
The good thing about EVM is that, like, but that it's not the good thing about EVM is that, like, I mean, there are many our tools, but they're ultimately kind of similar communities. They jump around a lot, right? But then if you're on Solana, right, your community is Solana, right? And then if you go to like AppDoors or Sui, right, or like no get wrong, go there if you want to. It's not a big deal, right? But you don't your community doesn't follow you.
That's true.
In fact, your community hates you now. Right? I mean, for good or for bad, they hate you now, right? Because you're like, okay, I mean, and you make, for example, there was some NFT projects that left to someone else, right? Dude, those guys put their community in a really weird place. They're like, okay, I'm part of the NFT thing, but I also like this thing, and you're making it really awkward for me right now. Am I supposed to show you?
It is strange because, I mean, I feel like this is only within crypto, and maybe it's just the token or money aspect that goes along with it well. Because, for example, if you like compared blockchains to like cloud providers and was like, hey, I'm going from AWS to Google Cloud, no one's going to give a shit. They're like, whatever. Like, but now you attach a token to it and you're like, you're banding my token. How dare you? I'm going to FUD your project.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I think it's a bit. I think to your point. I think to be fair though, I think it's a little bit more than money aspect to it. I really think that people have feelings. Right? I think it's more like you're really in. I feel like it's actually more like, for example, what's a good example here? Maybe like maybe you really love Taylor Swift or something, right? And Taylor Swift have a boyfriend, so say fuck the boyfriend, kind of thing, right? Kind of thing. I actually feel like it's actually more that way. The money thing matters as well, but I feel like I feel like blockchains have such a strong like emotional thing to it, right? That I think that's very people, right? And back to the point. I think sorry, but just like how the product core, right? I think we also have a very strong like community core, right? We are actually very simple here, right? I think what we do a lot, if I saw, is that we really work extremely hard, right, to add value, right, to be part of the broader ecosystem, right? Both Solana and crypto, right? I think for Solana, for example, right, I think we work extremely hard on APIs and SDKs, right? I think that's the reason why I think and that's the reason why I think we are the most like, integrated platform in Solana, right? Because it's not for free. We work very hard for it, right? We try to make sure that every time there's any problems with anything, we take care of it, right? The other thing that we do a lot of is that I think we also work really, really hard with new AMMs, right? So I think the thing that people don't quite see, but I'm personally very proud of, is that like we work extremely hard on new AMMs, right? In fact, like in months and months and months before they launch, we actually work with them, right, to make sure that their stuff is good and solid, right, and then we launch it, right. And then thirdly is that we're starting to get like more and because Jupyter is a pretty well used protocol, so we do a lot of work in kind of like making sure that the tokens that people used, right, the projects that people get involved with are actually legit, right. And that's also why we recently announced like Jupyter Start, right, which is like a five-step thing to really help introduce new communities, new projects to our communities. So I think and because we really want to help the ecosystem grow, right. So I think that's actually the other thing that that's very different, right. Because you don't just need a product core, you also need a certain philosophy, right, around ecosystem. And you see Ethereum, that's the same for Ethereum too, right? All the great Ethereum projects, right, have a certain like relationship with the ecosystem, right? And I think that is actually like very fundamental.
Yeah, I think I've in the past have kind of historically underappreciated the community aspect and that dynamic, but it is very important. I think you guys have done it well. Mad Lads and Backpack has done it very well,
Amazing.
where that community aspect is actually kind of turbocharges the product and the product usage, and it's really the combination of those two that really is the catalyst for extreme growth. And I think as much as Ethereum has some of its issues, the community aspect is one that they've absolutely nailed. Even on the roadmap side, everybody knows different EIP numbers. They can recite it like the Bible. They're very good at that aspect.
Amazing. I mean, I would say that like, I mean, yeah, totally amazing. Ethereum is like, I mean, every time I go to an Ethereum event, right, I mean, it's like, I should say, it's actually very, for example, you know Stanford Blockchain Week?
Yep.
Stanford Blockchain Week is a very Ethereum adjacent, I would call it Ethereum adjacent event.
I hope it changes a little bit, but I would definitely agree. It's very modular / Ethereum focused.
Yeah, it's all about kind of like, I mean, there's some like side conversations about like crush and everything, and but yeah, I think it is I mean, it's called Stanford Blockchain Week, but it should really be called like Stanford Ethereum Week, you know, or something. Right? Yeah, no, but it's fine. I don't really care to change. You know, there are just so many good things coming. There's just so many good things, you know, coming up. You know, but I think yeah, I think that when I go to that conference, I'm like, wow, it's interesting, because you really have that really strong core there. I think, you know, yeah, and also obviously you also have some pretty strong backers over there, like Paradigm. You know, right? As well, and then yeah, who have been historically extremely connected to Ethereum. I'm not sure if we'll go for that. You know, I think they're definitely extremely influential in Ethereum right now, right? And I'm not 100% sure it's go for bad, but you know, we'll see.
I do think longer term, I mean, it really is, in my opinion, kind of just a factor of number go up. If it's really all these venture funds are betting on the fastest horse per se. At one time, I mean, that was Bitcoin as like the fastest growing asset. Then Ethereum expanded upon that with smart contracts. And I think now, like going from Ethereum to like high throughput blockchains like Solana that have scalability kind of baked in, you don't have to worry about gas fee. It will be a new paradigm, and you will have kind of, in my opinion, this capital repricing. And if that does happen, then you'll see a lot of these kind of traditional players move over into the Solana and high throughput ecosystems. And the people that I think were here initially are going to actually do extremely well.
I mean, to the point, right? I feel like at least for Jupiter, right? At Jupiter and stuff, I feel like the whole Ethereum ecosystem and DeFi ecosystem. Sorry, let me just rewind 5 seconds. Okay, cool. All right. Nah, bang. I feel like the whole crypto. I feel like the whole. I feel like there's a certain like obsession in like TVL and everything and stuff, you know, and also like I feel like the scope of our imagination now is limited, right? Because of building, because for example, if you're building on, because before Ethereum, there was Bitcoin, right? And then if you're on Bitcoin, then your imagination is stifled, right? Because you can't do a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And even when I try to do stuff, then you're getting the colored coins and everything that's really good and really visionary, right? But then it was so hard to do, right? That people just gave up, right? They just, okay, fine, Bitcoin, store of value, done, next, right? Yep. And Ethereum, same thing too. So Ethereum really opened up possibility, right, for many things, right?
100%.
And then, but something becomes so difficult, like consumer becomes so difficult, payments becomes so difficult, remittance becomes so difficult, right? You know, getting more users to use stuff becomes more difficult, right? And then you start creating this like auto thing, which is great, but you know, honestly, no user will care. No real user will care. It's hard enough for them to use blockchains, let alone, you know, like 20 autos, right? So I think as a result that you stop imagining, right? It's just that when in the Bitcoin world, they stop imagining things, right? Because things were so difficult to do, right? Same thing at Ethereum, I think they have stopped imagining, right? Seriously, Ethereum, my biggest issue with Ethereum right now is that they have stopped imagining, right? They just go, okay, the world is going to be made up of these like crazy SL2s, right? And TVL, and all we need to do is to just create more L2s and more coins, and we're good, right? That is, and then they come with all kinds of like reasons for why like you're able to execute like synchronously across blockchain L2s. That will not happen. It won't happen. I've done a lot of caution stuff. Okay, it would not happen, right? So I think as a result, I think we have stopped imagining, right? I think so. I think over here is where I think I think part of my mission in the kind of coming year or so is to really start getting people to imagine more, right? Cool. All right, we don't have to have the same constraints anymore, right? Right? Yeah. We can imagine what things can look like. We can actually imagine making payments work. We should imagine trying to make remittances work again. Right? We should be able to trying to imagine like making social work, right? So I feel that is going to be a very pivotal point, but that's going to happen as well. But obviously, we need people to use those things, right? That's actually why getting enough people into the Solana ecosystem first, so that these things can get traction, is so important, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a multi-step process, right? I think the first step process is imagine, right? Because I think seriously, I I recently wrote a post and going like, okay, people expect us to do a certain thing because for example, when we first started, right, people are going to, you're going to deploy on Aptos and Suite, and that's going to have a button on the side to change the wallet, right? That is what that's what they expect us to do. Right, but we say fuck it, right? We're not going to do that. We're going to, instead of like spreading out, we're going to add deep value, right? We're going to add deep value into the product, add deep value into the ecosystem, right? And add deep value to the users, right? Have this relationship with the users, right? So I think similarly, I think it's going to be a 3-step process, right? I think the first step process is for us to have more confidence. Right? Okay, cool. All right, we are on a new game, new platform, new possibilities. Let's go, right? We don't have to like think that we are not as good or something, right? That's firstly, right? The second thing is that I think we need to bring on a lot more users, a lot more, and there's no reason. Again, when your guest is like $5, right? The number of people who use you are limited. For stop, and if you have to navigate between 20 different chains to do something, to find something, your user base is going to be smaller as well, right? But we don't have those constraints here. Right, so you should really be thinking how do we bring on way more users? How do we get all the sex users in? How do we get like everyone in? Right, so I think that's certainly one of my main goals, right, in the next year. Right,
Meow, I'll stand side by side with you over the next couple of years or next decade and help champion this as well, because I think at Frictionless, I mean, these are the unique things that we're excited about. I think, the analogy that I use is like going from dial-up to broadband. Like you can build YouTube type applications once you're on broadband. And I think Solana was that leap. That got you from dial-up internet to broadband. And I think that will only continue. And so these 0 to 1 type applications, I really think, Jupiter, and I think what you've been doing with the perp DAX, maybe it's a good segue into what you've been doing there, is a good reimagination of like, all right, now we have higher throughput blockchains. It's, we can do more with it. What can we make? Can you talk a little bit about like the Jupiter perp DAX? And you guys have gained a majority of market share relatively quickly.
It's still early, right? I think we hit a billion, a billion volume recently. It has been a month, and we launched in beta, and also launched with a very very highly capped, extremely capped, AUM. Right, so I think it's been good. I think we are probably very focused on how do we make it such that you don't have to use a sex, right? Anymore, right? And I actually believe in it deeply because the reason I believe in it very, very deeply is that I think it's not just because of Jupiter. I think when you are on people always talk about how sectors have deeper liquidity, how on sectors easier to use and all that kind of stuff. But it's actually that becomes less and less true by the day, right? Firstly, I think for example, Jupiter, right? We don't use the liquidity from Jupiter alone, right? We use the liquidity from the whole ecosystem, right? Are we saying that the entire ecosystem over time cannot have more liquidity than Binance. Right? Over time, right? I don't think so. I think that there has to be that, okay, we are going to have enough like Dexters and everything and stuff, and markets that we're going to have better liquidity than Binance, right? At some point, right? Certainly better liquidity than most sectors already, right? Certainly, right? I think, and for example, you can already buy and occasionally buy BTC at a lower price than Coinbase, for example, right? Things like that. So I think that's actually one thing that we want to do, right? We want to make it such a cool, right? You don't have a reason to use something else, right? And then the second thing is that when the user is actually on the user funds, right, are on a wallet, right, on the decentralized wallet, he can use anything he wants. He can use Camino, he can use Solana, he can use remittance and payments and everything, right? All these are not possible somewhere else, right? So we just need to keep on continuously growing the utility, right, of having your capital, on the blockchain, versus on the wallet, right? And the third thing is obviously to kind of like blend everything in the UI, right? And kind of usability that they are very familiar with, right? Which is why the perp thing is so important, right? Because it allows the users to kind of like get access to things they are very familiar with, right? In a UI in a UI they're familiar with, but also, wow, it's actually fun and easy, right? It's cute, Yeah, so I think we are quite some ways along these three dimensions, right? Along the dimension, as you can see, I love trees, right? Like the first dimension of liquidity, we're early. The second dimension of usability, we're early, and the third dimension of utility, we're early as well, right? Yeah. But there's no reason that within the next 2 or 3 years, right, we will get to I hope near parity, right? And the next 10 years we'll win, that's it. I think decentralized will win,
I do agree. It's kind of like a one-way door where once you go from kind of the traditional TradFi world to the crypto rails, you really don't come back. And I mean, more and more younger individuals are storing their wealth on chain as that liquidity becomes larger.
And one thing real quick to what you were saying earlier, right, is that actually my transition to the DeFi world didn't really happen until Solana, right? Because like doing perps in Ethereum is painfully expensive, right? And using swaps in Ethereum is painfully expensive, right? Right? And as much as I hated sectors, I'm like, okay, I have to, it's just so much cheaper to just buy that, right? It's much easier, right? I think, So I think, but Solana, I don't feel it.
Same thing. I mean, for Solana and like the high throughput blockchains, I mean, ultimately, it's kind of like everything and more is possible on a Solana type network than an Ethereum or an L2. There's nothing not possible that is only possible on an Ethereum of the world. Like everything is more performant, cheaper, faster, easier on a Solana blockchain, which
Can I say something ridiculous?
Sure.
I love using Jupiter. I mean, I love it. Like I'm not shilling it. I really like it. Like every time I use it, like today I was just using it for a range of things. I was using it to check the liquidity. I was just typing zeros because I wanted to check the liquidity for BTC, right? So I opened up Jupiter. I start typing 1 0 0 0. It just really fast. Oh, it's great. I love it, right? And then I swap for some. I did some swapping earlier. I placed a perp earlier. I placed a 100x perp earlier. I lost all my money really quick. But whatever. Right? It was fun. It was fun. So I think I really enjoyed. I think and also it also felt good because I wasn't using a SEX. I was using a DEX. Right? And then right afterwards, I was able to connect to Camino, right, and do some stuff there. You know what I'm saying, no? Right? So I think that freedom of usage and freedom of like the freedom of usage and freedom of like choice, right? You get, like you use Jupiter, you're not stuck in Jupiter. You can use anything you want, right? I just feel like that, and then so it places tremendous pressure on Jupiter to just be good, right? Literally, right? It's like, hey, you have no moat, right? Yeah. You're being good, being a good product, good community, and being a good ecosystem player. Those are your moats. Right, it's a good one to have. If all of us, right? If all of us like focus on, if everyone in the ecosystem focus on those modes, we are great. It's a great ecosystem. Done. Over.
I do agree. In terms of maybe kind of wrapping up the podcast, ultimately, I think that special combination, as you mentioned, of like not only Jupiter, but really every other DeFi program that you can really connect with happens because of like the high throughput single shard architecture that Solana
Yep.
really pioneered. Can you talk about like where you see the future of like Solana DeFi and even kind of the future of Jupiter within that?
So I think one thing that I mentioned in my Bitcoin talk, right, and I keep talking about it everywhere I go, right, is that the critical, really the critical thing to understand, right, as we start to imagine the future, right, is that the utility of Solana and the UX of Solana gets increases over time, right? Because it's one blockchain, right? Like it's one blockchain. I think most bystanders will talk about the speed and everything, right? But one thing, and a more geeky term is composability, right? But you can just think of it as one blockchain, right? And that, because why? Because all the use cases, all the games, all the tokens, all the markets, and all the NFTs are all in one blockchain. Right? You can literally be on Jupiter at some point and search for something. We don't have search yet, but maybe we can search for something, right? At some point, and then get anything you want, right? And then you'll be able to execute synchronously across anything you want, right? Across any market, any asset, right? And it's great.
That is the alpha. I don't think people fully appreciate it.
They don't fully appreciate that, and that's actually really important because that is what you build towards, right? Right? And you really, that future doesn't exist elsewhere, right? The reason it doesn't exist on Ethereum, right, is that you can't have that experience. It's not possible. I don't care what you say. I mean, if you understand blockchains, you understand you can do it, right?
Yeah.
That's it. I'm not hating on L2s or anything, right? And saying even though but just can't do it, right? It's just like saying that, for example, an elephant is heavy. It's not saying that. I'm not saying anything about elephant. Just an elephant is heavy, right?
So we can love elephants and still acknowledge elephants are heavy.
Precisely. You can love elephants and they're heavy. They can run that fast, right? So similarly, right? It's just how it works. So I feel like, but that's actually alpha, right? So I think that answers your question about Jupiter, right? We are not building towards the future. We are not building a future where we care about say what happens now. Obviously what happens now is that we fix bugs, right? Any bug that come out, we fix the shit, everything, right? And also on the more intermediate terms, there is like but we're really building towards the future, right? Whereby there's going to be like a gazillion, like unlimited number of shit happening, right? Some good, some bad, right? And again, I think right now, Solana ecosystem looks kind of similar to Ethereum today, right? In terms of the core functionality, right? But we think it should look very different, right? In the coming years, right? And we think it should look very different, So I think our goal is to do that. Yeah, I think, but of course along the way there's a lot of things to fix, right? For example, for the pods to work really well, we need to have an extremely good Oracle system, extremely reliable Oracle system. And that kind of thing really cuts across like UX, the Oracle itself, Solana itself, how everything's done, everything. So I think, but I think everything is improving at a very rapid pace. I think one thing to just say that is that another thing I'm impressed by is that Solana works really hard to solve problems, right? So all the main problems that we had building on Solana 2 years ago around is now gone, which is amazing. And it's a combined effort of the ecosystem with amazing people like Amani, obviously, right? And also the foundation itself. So it's pretty amazing. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I think that is what I think will happen. The usability and the utility for Solana will increase over time dramatically, and it will stay great. And I think that is the world that I think we are going to be ready for. Yeah.
I fully agree, and the world hasn't even started thinking about Fire Dancer either. So I think that's where we go from broadband to fiber optics, which will be very interesting as well. But really appreciate you coming on, Meow. A very spirited conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. You and the Jupiter team have been absolutely crushing it, and I hope that you guys continue to be a very active and proud Solana community member because you guys are great representations.
Cool. Amazing. Thanks for chat. Really, again, thanks for being here throughout everything, right? And thanks for the conversation. A lot of things I haven't said anywhere before. So it's pretty fun. Yeah, thank you.